Swipe right. Somebody swiped right on me.
Korn Ferry Tour event.
First time somebody ever swiped right on me in my life. So yeah, that's what.
Is there a caddy Tinder? How does that work?
Yeah, that wouldn't that be something? All right, everybody, what's happening? How you living? No putts given. Tony, how's the house going?
It is a work in endless progress.
Is it an unmitigated disaster yet, or no?
It's it's getting there. You know, when the people who bought your house want to close and you can't because the house you're building isn't ready. It's a
Sounds
situation.
like a hotel.
We're navigating
Sounds like a hotel problem.
Yeah, it's fine.
All right, so last week I caddied on the Korn Ferry Tour, and thought this might be a nice opportunity to invite people inside the ropes, have you guys grill me a little bit on what it's like. As you know, I'm not a professional caddy. I'm not a professional much anything at times, but had the opportunity to caddy for MJ Daffue, who, as some of you will remember, some of you are just like, who the hell's MJ Daffue? Do you know who MJ Daffue is, Harry?
By the way, I'm Harry. Just thanks for the introduction there, Chris.
Like people don't know who you are.
I'm only giving you crap.
They've read the magazines.
I didn't know any Duffy until the US Open.
Yeah. So Korn Ferry Tour player, but was leading the US Open there at Brookline for a fair minute, and hit the most memorable shot was the one on number 8, I believe, right off the hospitality area, 7-wood, 5-wood, something like that, in between two trees.
Was it 8?
Wasn't it 8?
I swear it was like 14, the par 5, where he hit a 3-wood, right? Or not?
Yeah, let's call it 14. 8, 14. What's the difference?
Same. At the US Open.
On some hole, he hit some shot with some club, and it appears to have been at least slightly memorable. I don't know. So,
long story short, next week we have Korn Ferry event at my home course at TPC Colorado, and get an inquiry from one Sam Saunders, who says, "Hey, got a buddy. MJ's looking for a caddy for the week. Are you interested?" And I was planning on hopefully caddying that week if possible. It's home course, home event, those kind of things. And I was like, sure, yeah, let's give it a run. I've caddied out there a number of times, and
so they came to you directly. So you were by special request.
Well,
so that was going to be my first question. Was like, hey, did somebody come to you, or was like, you're just kind of scrolling on Craigslist or a Facebook ad, and it was like
swipe right.
Caddy
somebody
wanted
swiped
for
right on
Korn
me.
Ferry Tour event.
First time somebody ever swiped right on me in my life. So yeah, that's what.
Is there a caddy Tinder?
Yeah, that wouldn't that be something?
He looks fat. I don't think he can.
That guy can't possibly walk 36 holes, let alone 72. So no, yeah, typically the way it works, and it's an interesting thing, right? Like, you'll always have guys that will show up without a caddy for whatever reason. There might be, there's local qualifiers, and they don't know if they're going to qualify or not. Boom, they, guys will maybe call their college coach if they're around, or a family friend. Or we saw that with wasn't that like Akshay Badia that had his girlfriend or whatever?
I have no idea.
This is
I did
a couple weeks back, and so
that's the extent of it.
You get a lot of those situations. In this case, we always have kind of a group of us out there that are willing to caddy if somebody needs one for this particular event. And just so happened in this case, MJ's regular caddy, I think had like surgical procedure, shoulder, something like that. He's already exempt on the PJ Tour next year. So he'll have a full PJ Tour schedule next year. I think he was currently 4th or maybe 5th by that week. He was 5th on the money list. In the top 25, Korn Ferry get their automatic PJ Tour card. So he's, already over that point threshold to do that. So, he was just looking for somebody for the week. And like I said, Sam Saunders reached out, and I said, yeah, let's give it a run. So That was my first mistake.
How would you like to caddy for somebody else? Definitely not me.
Yeah, it's like
Maybe somebody else.
Yeah, I said, yeah, sure, why not? Let's go. And I kind of knew who MJ was, at least at Sam. I was like, this is going to be interesting. So yeah, like I said, figured it'd be a great time. Harry as an accomplished player, somebody who plays in events, maybe even aspires to have an opportunity in those, and then Tony and you and I are both in that very amateur journeyman. Maybe the biggest event we play in is the Tuesday night league or Wednesday night league or occasional member guest.
In my club now, those are now tournament scores apparently. So,
yeah, I just thought it'd be fun for you guys to
anyway
poke me with a bunch of questions and what is it like to actually do that for a week as somebody who doesn't really do that for a living,
Like how do you start them? So Sam Saunders puts you in touch with MJ, I presume, because you've already agreed. So there's no interview, right? Like he doesn't be like, you know what, I got 3 potential scrub caddies. So you were just his guy, right?
Yeah, I mean Sam had kind of vouched for me. I've known Sam for quite a while. And so I think it was kind of implicit, like, hey, I got a guy for you. He'll you can at least tolerate him for a week. He won't, worst case scenario, you basically have somebody to lug your shit around all over the course. And, worst case scenario, you got that for a week. Or if you miss the cut through Friday. But, so yeah, this was just kind of a one-off kind of deal.
So what are those preliminary conversations with MJ like? Like obviously you're not meeting each other on the first tee on Thursday. So what are those initial?
Yeah, so like met him on the range on that Monday, and actually David Bray was out there, PGA or the Ping Tour rep, and we had launch monitor stuff out because Colorado's at roughly 5,000 feet elevation, and so actually the first thing we did was we met on the range and started having the conversation or continuing the conversation of should we tweak anything in the bag for this week based on the course conditions. And in this case, like I said, being in Colorado, the biggest variable is elevation. And so really what we ended up doing was just kind of dialing in numbers, saying, okay, 8 irons this, 7 irons this, but then spent the most time tweaking driver 3-wood, which for him is actually a 5-wood and a 7-wood. And we, in almost all cases, we increased launch and increased spin. We were actually trying to get 12-ish degrees of launch, 12 to 13, and as close to 3,000 spin as we could.
For driver.
Because, what's that?
For the driver.
For the driver, yeah, because he wanted to carry it like at sea level. He would carry it around 305. So we were targeting a 335 to 340 number at Colorado. So we're looking at the yardage book and saying, okay, what carries from which tee boxes? Where is this going to be advantageous to us to try and carry it that number? And he did hit a couple that got down to like 2,200, and they carried like 354. It was just. It was pretty ridiculous, but that's really what we spent Monday doing, and I think he just kind of getting a feel for me, and I was kind of getting a feel for him, and then like I said, chatting with some of the Ping Tour guys, like, hey, what do I need to know? What's helpful? Kind of a crash course, right? So that was kind of Monday. Tuesday,
were they like you need a hat?
yeah, and then so they gave me like 6 hats and like one in each of the different colors. I was like, okay, well, and then they gave me some. They gave me some visors, which I'm probably going to give away because this doesn't work with.
You do, yeah. You don't have the head.
I don't have the hair for a visor.
You could tan up your top of your noggin though. You could tan it right.
Harry can, hairless us can't. Yeah.
Yeah. So
my question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, my question is how. One, do they have green reading books? Because there was also a grey area of. All right, PGA Tour has banned them, right?
Well, they
do.
Yeah.
Do the lower leagues, the ones coming up, allow for the same thing?
Yeah. So they have and I can post some pictures of this maybe on there as well, but basically, they have a tour-approved yardage book that you can buy, or that you have to buy. They're like $40. And I think that's probably pretty universal, but it's like, boom, here's the PGA Tour yardage book. I had one from last year when I caddied, and those were the ones couldn't use anymore because effectively they had too much detail, right, on the greens. And so these ones basically, they still have like a little grid, right, where every box or every line is 5 yards. And so you have the green on a grid, and then it'll have a little bit of general information on slopes, but not nearly the level of detail and specificity that, that you...
Everything runs towards the creek or the pond.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, that's
Right,
where
that's
the
how it
local
goes.
knowledge, if you will, I think kind of...
Away from the mountains into the creek.
Exactly.
If I understand how every golf course works.
Yeah, so theoretically, away from big things and towards low areas, away from high areas towards low areas, all things notwithstanding.
In conjunction with gravity.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, so that was, that was Monday. Tuesday, we played a practice round, played just 9 holes, and then practiced specific shots. Again, you kind of learn, like, these guys are...
So you're out there the whole time, right? Like you don't get to be like, well, I'll see you later. I got stuff to do.
No.
You're full-time caddy for.
Yeah, more or less. Like I think it's like, hey, I'm gonna get out there. Let's get out there around lunch, play 9 holes, and do this. But like when you're there, obviously you want the player. You're there and you're available for whatever they need. And so, yeah, I did 9 holes of practice on Tuesday, and then the top players, whatever, are in the pro-am situation. So. We played 9 holes on Wednesday morning as part of the Pro-Am. Then again, practiced a little bit after that to around lunch, 1 o'clock. And then it was get ready for tourney time on Thursday.
So like you get the staff bag, I assume, right? He's carrying a staff bag. For the first time, did you do like the Caddy Master starter at Bandon Dunes, like in the first tee, you open everything up and be like, no, you don't need this. You definitely know it's not going to rain today. We're going to take this out. You know what? We're going to swap this out for a lighter bag while we're here. Don't worry. You can, leave your wallet, whatever you want to do. We'll pick it up later. It'll be just in that shack over there. Or are you just like, this is, I guess
game?
This is it. I'm going to shut my mouth.
The 2 things that weigh the most. So number 1, no, there's no going through and extricating any superfluous materials. You're just going with what's ever in there. But number 2, it was pretty hot, right? So at this point in time, it's hot. So you're carrying a lot of liquid. And that's the 2 things that'll weigh you down really are liquid and golf balls. In fact, this was actually, here's a funny story for you. So we were on, this was day 3. He made the cut, playing day 3 Saturday. We're playing with Curtis Luck, who Australian guy, former number 1 ranked amateur in the world. I think 2017 he won the USAM. Maybe fact check that.
Sounds familiar. I know the name.
Titleist staffer, great dude, super nice guy. We had a blast playing with him. He was awesome. We get to the 15th tee, which is a slightly uphill par 5. And he's kind of kneeling behind his bag, and all of a sudden he just starts chucking brand new Pro V1s out of his bag. And I'm kind of looking at MJ. MJ looks like, the hell's he doing? What is he? And he's like, I got way too many balls in here. This is way too heavy. He's checking these new balls. So what do? I run over there and I grab them. and
were they left?
They were 2019 Pro V1X, which actually is the same ball that MJ plays, not the 2021. They both played the 2019 one. So I just had them for extras because he would sign them and give them to kids after the round or whatever. But like, those are perfectly good brand new Pro V1Xs. I will, for 4 holes, had it been on hole 2, I don't know if I would have grabbed them, but I'm like, we're already on 15. Free golf balls. Let's go. So.
All right. So you got Wednesday out the way. You're going to your tee time and you get on that first tee. Were you nervous regarding a normal, so you have a tournament around yourself that you're playing? Were you shitting your pants more or less being a caddy than you were playing?
100% more. 1,000% more. Like, I had that little gurgly feeling in my stomach where you're like, ooh, if I fart right now, like this could, I might gamble and lose.
What were you nervous about? Like, so just the unexpected, or
exactly. It's like, it's always, you don't know what you don't know. Like, I'm worried that, because it's dead quiet. something's going to happen where your shoe squeaks or something bizarre. You left your phone on in the bag and it goes off like at the worst possible. Like you're just, because I was trying to explain to somebody else, like being a caddy, I think is a lot like, holding for extra points, in the NFL. Like you think about Tony Romo. No, everybody knows he held for extra points only when he screwed up. Like, I think that's a lot of being a caddy. People really only notice you if you do something wrong. You get a wrong yardage. You have 15 clubs in the bag. Like, remember Ian Woosnam's caddy when he just went ape shit on him? He's like, you had one job, and it's like, I think it's that. It's like I wasn't nervous.
To get to the first tee and literally like just chuck everything out of the bag, like all the clubs would be like,
I counted to 14.
Two.
I did. I counted to 14 like 7 times before that
I would
first
do the
round.
same thing.
I wanted to be 100% sure that there were only, like, if there were 13, fine, or whatever. But like I was just nervous I was going to screw up something really easy that people would be like, honestly, how do you screw that up? Like, that's so simple. But when you're trying to think of 1,000 different things, you can totally see where, you're trying to do A, B, C, D, and E, and then you forget something super basic, the towel's not wet or whatever. So yeah, was I nervous? Yeah, I was way more nervous than any tournament I've ever played in because, if you hit a bad shot, you blame your equipment, or you blame yourself or whatever. But when you're there and your number one job is to try to make somebody else's job easier, like it's almost like it's only going to be noticeable if I screw something up. And I really didn't want to screw anything up.
So what did he want from you then? Did he just was like, all right, just give me, I'll do everything? Or did he want everything from you and then you messed up something and he said, all right, I don't want you doing that anymore. Just let me know this. And then if you mess up that, then he just carry the bloody bag. just carry the bag.
Shut up.
What did he want from you?
Shut up.
What did he want from you?
So it's interesting. He, MJ was really, really open to everything. He wanted help. I shouldn't say help. He wanted to do, because we're at elevation, right? So you're factoring in a percentage of somewhere between 7.5% and 10% of either increase or decrease carry, right? So he wanted me, and we both did the math on every shot to make sure that we were getting the right yardages, of which we screwed up one. And I take 78% of the blame for the one yardage we screwed up. But we wanted to do that, and then sight lines off tees, because he had never seen the course. He had never played it. I mean, the practice round was the first time he ever saw the course. So he really wanted a lot of input on, okay, what's the sight line here? And then, where can I miss? Where can't I miss? If I leave it in this bunker, is that a viable up and down or not? So a lot of the course management stuff, really, he wanted a lot of input, and honestly, he followed, the vast majority of it. When it got to the greens, he's a very, very good putter. And I want to say, double check the stats, but I think he, at the U.S. Open that week, I want to say he was maybe like second in strokes gained putting for the week. And you guys both know those greens, not easy to putt on at all. And he's he's an excellent putter. And so he would really call me in for confirmation, like, hey, I'm seeing this inside right. Or, occasionally he would, before he would even, this is more the third and fourth day, before he would totally read the putt, he would just say, hey, Chris, what do you see here? And I'd say, well, it's definitely right to left. And he'd say, okay, that's all I need. Or I would say, yeah, it's definitely right to left. And I think what's interesting is we started reading putts a lot differently than I had read them before. He wanted to know, hey, where do you think this ball should be 2 feet from the hole, 4 feet from the hole? And I was like, huh. So we started really talking about, okay, at 2 feet from the hole, it needs to have, it needs to be inside right, or it has to be still off the hole, or, whatever the case was.
So what do you mean by it's 2 feet from the hole? So you're trying to putt, if from 2 feet from the hole, I'm trying to see what it does from there. And then obviously speed dictates the rest of the 2 feet. So say, all right, if I'm going to go a little bit firmer at 2 feet before the hole, I can play it, inside right or whatever you just said.
Yep.
But if I play it a little bit more because kind of like at the hole, then I want to be outside.
Yeah, it's going to die left. So 2 feet from the hole, it has to be, inside right or right edge, or it's not going in. So it has to be at least here. So just like kind of those little things, figuring out what gave him confidence, what he wanted to know. Because, once you eliminate all the variables, and it's like, okay, then you got to hit the shot. And then golf happens, right? It hits a spike mark. It doesn't. It's slower than you thought. It's a little faster than you thought. It's, whatever it is. But I would say it's as involved as I've been, in when caddying event for a player at that level.
So for me, like if I'm playing on my own in a competition, I'm walking down the fairway or probably riding down the fairway because that's what we do. I'm thinking, all right, so I'm going to have probably about 160 in, pins 5 from the right. So, all right, so I'm now making sure that all right, so short and right is dead, long and right is dead, blah, blah, blah. So I need to aim 3 yards to the left and hit my dispersion shot. So because I'm starting to do decade, that kind of stuff.
Yep, I was going to say that sounds very decade-ish. What you were just saying.
Yeah, I'm doing that mentally.
Mm-hmm.
I very rarely go for pins because I'm playing 2 areas, and then if I end up pushing it onto a pin, so if I end up pushing it onto a pin and it goes next to the hole, it's not because I'm trying to do that. I'm not going pin seeking. I'm just playing to my dispersion pattern. And it's helped out a lot. Does he do something similar, or does he all right, I'm dialed in, I'm going for the pin?
No, I mean, I would say, iron play is, again, probably a strength of his game. Driver, if I were to look at his strokes gained stuff, I wouldn't be at all surprised if he gained a significant amount of strokes off the tee, gained significant strokes putting. Iron play, really, really solid. Maybe his largest weakness, it's all relative, right? At that level, what's weak is man, I would take his game, but maybe, and a lot of people struggle first time at elevation on partial shots, because the spin maybe drops more than you think. So sometimes the ball will fly a little bit too far, even when you're trying to, take 3/4 or something. But I would say this, when I was giving him feedback on that, so for example, number 17, one day we had a back left pin, kind of middle left pin, and long left is just dead. I mean, it is dead. It's a -2 at least, maybe -3 for decade people. So I'm adding that. So when we're talking through it, I'm basically picking decade targets more or less for myself. So if we had 144 to the pin, and so I'm already taking 7 off the left. I took another 3 or 4 off the left. So now we're 11-ish. So we're 4 or 5 yards right and slightly short of this pin from 140 yards. We're hitting 138 or 139 yard carry is what we're going for. And that's how I would work through it a lot. And he picked a lot. I don't think he uses decade. I don't know that he does. But he picked a lot of decade appropriate targets through his own plan. He did want to go at some pins that maybe I would have been slightly more conservative on, but I think, again, especially when you don't know the person super well or whatever, I was never going to talk him out of a club or a yardage or a shot that I felt he was confident with, right? Because the last thing you can do, second guessing any shot, whether it's the right one or not, is probably no bueno. So if he was confident in it, say, hey, I'm going to hit this. Okay, there we go. Let's get it.
So he was playing for percent. He was playing percentage golf basically, and let his putter do the talking and roll a couple of 15-footers in.
A lot of 15-footers. Yeah, the last day. Last day he made 8 birdies and an eagle. And it's not like he hit it to a foot all day.
Yeah. And that's so he's just playing a percentage, and if his putter gets hot, it gets hot, and he shoots that 64.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he could. Yeah. Yep.
So he's 75% of the time he's not going for pins. He's going for a section of the green where he has the best chance to get a 15 to 20 foot putt or whatever it may be, and if he pulls it onto the target or pushes it on the target, so be it.
But I mean, it really is avoiding those positions where bogey becomes a really good score, or you bring double into play. What leads to birdies are a lot of pars, hitting a lot of greens and a lot of those, 15 to 20 footers. That leads to a lot of birdies. What leads to a lot of bogeys are going for pins you shouldn't be going for. You tweak it a little bit, you go a little long, you're short-sighted, and you end up making, 6 or 7 from the middle of the fairway, and you're kicking yourself every time. Like, I should have just played over here. Every golfer knows it after they've done it. But that's pressure of tournament golf. You're trying to think under the gun. You're also trying to shoot the lowest score you can. And, frankly, sometimes it's harder for these guys because they are really good. Like, I'm not good enough to hit a 7-iron to a pin that's tucked and be like, hey, I can pull this off. Whereas a lot of those guys are. They can hit shots that, I can never hit. And so it's not so much you're trying to talk them out of something they can't do. Like you said, it's just playing the percentages and understanding, what's the best possible opportunity. If they were to hit the shot 10 times, what's going to give them the best opportunity for the lowest score?
So I would say, all right, so when I'm playing golf and we have a live stat scoring system and I can just check it on my phone, coming down the stretch, the last 4 or 5 holes, I want to know what I need to do to potentially win that tournament, right? Did he even give a shit, or was he just in his own game, just plugging along?
The last day we were, I want to say, let's think. Okay, so we were -7 going into Sunday. So he was 7 under for the tournament. To have a tournament winner, I want to say ended up, 17 under? So
he knew it was out the window, basically.
Well, he just knew. We had to throw up 8, 9, 10 under and hope the wind blew or something on the guys ahead. So it wasn't like, hey, we're going to go for broke. When you look at the last 5, 6 holes, it's actually interesting. So number 13 is 773-yard par 5. So it's a 3-shotter. He stuffs a wedge close on his 3rd shot, makes birdie. Gets a bad plugged lie in a bunker on 14, makes bogey. 15 is a par 5. This is that one up the hill where Curtis Luck was throwing away the Pro V1s. He hits his 2nd shot on beautiful 6-iron. He goes driver 6-iron on this to like 25 feet, makes a putt for a 3. Number 16 is a downhill par 3, kind of a pretty narrow green, hits it to 8 feet, makes a putt. 17, really long hard. 17 is actually the number 1 handicap hole. It's a long par 4, bunkers on the left that these guys can hit it right into the bunker, and that leaves you about 200 yards to the green if you do. Misses like a 25-footer, makes 4. 18, another long par 4, hits his approach shot to about 20 feet, makes a putt. So he, ends up finishing, birdie, bogey, eagle, birdie, almost birdie, birdie's 18. And of those shots, the one that was the closest was like 8 feet on the short par 3. Everything else was, making putts. So it's not like
he wasn't thinking about, all right, score. He was thinking about the shot in hand.
Just trying to hit the best shot he could. Say, hey, what do we need to do to get this as close to the pin as possible? And let the variation take over. So, yeah.
So you make it through the week, right? You finish 6th.
T6.
Do you get the Kuchar treatment? How does you guys settle up at the end?
The L2 can treatment.
It's just high five and a beer at the
thumbs
bar.
Up, appreciate it.
Hey,
next time.
We'll catch you next time. Right? That's it's funny. And I told people I caddy it. That was the first question. Everybody like, well, did he pay you? And I was like, well, here's the thing. So, I had no expectations going in. Like, in the sense, like, it's not my daily job, right? I'm not, it's like hopefully we end up eating this week, whether he pays me or not, so I didn't have any expectations. And he was exceptionally generous. I feel he paid me like a normal caddy for the week. And I don't know if that's.
I can see Tony's question. What was that
number? Like most of the time, right? Like, I guess it depends, right? Every caddy has a different agreement. Like, if he had said at the beginning of the week, "Hey, I'm going to pay you X for the week, regardless of where I finish," I'd say, "Okay, that's cool." If he had said, "Hey, I'm going to get you a bunch of ping hats and you can have one of my putters when we're done," okay, whatever it was, but he said, basically he's like, "Hey, I'm going to pay you each day, and then depending how I finish, I'll pay you a bonus." And I was like, that's more than fair. And that's always individual based on, the player, their situation, obviously a lot of caddies have to pay their own expenses, like when they travel and things like that. So a lot of times that would go to, help offset some of those costs. Obviously I didn't have any of those costs.
Did you tell them out at the gate, like, look, I've got 7 daughters.
Did.
A couple of them are in college already.
I have a very, very big addiction on ice cream.
Yep. You can't possibly.
So while I don't necessarily have travel expenses,
you can't possibly pay me enough to offset my ice cream addiction. No, so he was unbelievably generous. I think it was a testament to, hopefully he felt that what I did was, valuable or helpful or whatever. Obviously he played really well. If he, trunk slams on Friday and misses a cut by 8, does that change that situation? Maybe, I don't know. But I'm sure for all the guys that maybe, you hear about the Coochers, or whatever it ends up being, I get the sense that far more of these guys are much more appreciative and generous and understand, like, you have to treat the people well around you that, whether you see them as kind of the service group, the people on the tour trucks, the trailers, the technicians, the volunteers there, your caddy, people that are, kind of helping you along for the week or whatever it was. I got the sense that most of the players, especially other people that I talked to out there, were very appreciative and super generous.
What percentage of the field is taking a local caddy?
1%, maybe 2%.
So most of these guys have regular.
Which is kind of crazy to me, because those regular caddies, they must be. I know the LPGA caddies get paid a dick. They're probably the top caddies, maybe making 60 grand. It's not like a ridiculous amount.
On LPGA, you mean?
On the LPGA, because they come to Kingsmill. Right. And some of them are like 21 plus bonuses, like 36. So Korn Ferry, they don't get paid that much for a
They're
win.
like 10% of PGA Tour, right? So like you basically look at it, it's $750,000 was the total purse for a Korn Ferry event, and for an average tour event, you're 7 plus or minus million, right? So like he finished, MJ finished T6. It was like 24 or 25,000, something like that. You look at John Deere, that week, or you look at Barbasol last week. You finish in the top 10, a couple $100,000. So it really, and then you can start kind of doing those percentages for caddies. But I think being a full-time caddy in that regard, if you are paying, your own travel expenses, all of those things, and your player isn't performing well or isn't making a lot of cuts or whatever, like I don't think you're exactly staying at the Ritz-Carlton every week and stuff like that. I think it's probably just the opposite.
Yeah, that's the hard part about it. Is caddies could have an awesome life, but they could also have an absolute struggle fest. And I would say, it all depends. It all depends on what your golfer is doing. If your golfer is having an absolute shitstorm, a bit like Spieth when he was going through at that time. Obviously his caddy had a little bit of an insurance policy previous.
He had some money.
Years.
Michael Greller had some money in the bank at that point.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're okay with it. But like Tiger Woods' caddy, I mean, I remember when Tiger Woods had his injuries and whatever, he told his caddy, hey, if you want to go get another bag, I completely understand. My guess is he was getting paid a salary anyway, whether he worked or not, which probably would have been, halfway decent. But yeah, I mean, I can see it just being quite a bit of a hard grind for a lot of these caddies.
Well,
especially for the players.
Yeah, here's a good story for you. So I was eating lunch with another caddy. They have a caddy room, whatever, and caddies tell the best stories. Like these guys are, you can tell a lot of them are just kind of grizzled, kind of, I mean, they've been on the road a lot and kind of living that life and whatever. And so meet lunch with this guy. He was in our group the first 2 days. He currently is the caddy for Carl Yuan, who is I think he's number 1 on the money list right now. Like he'll be full-time on PGA Tour next year, obviously. And so he's sitting there and he's like, well, 3 years ago at this tournament, TPC Colorado, he's like, yeah, so 3 years ago I was caddying for a guy, caddied for a guy here. And then, I was like, how does that work? Like, are there, is it as much as like, hey, you can get fired tomorrow? Like, what's the job security? He's like, there is no job security. You can get fired on the 8th hole or whatever. There is no, severance package or anything, kind of like that. But he's saying, he's like, all right, so I'm working this event for a guy. And I'm like, hey, he had another caddy buddy of his that he's like, hey, this other guy over here needs a caddy. Why don't you work for him for a little bit? And he's like, this other guy wanted him, the caddy for Carl, and I wanted him to be on his bag, but he's like, I promised this guy like 4 or 5 weeks. I feel like I need to, make good on that. So he's like, as soon as I'm done with those 4 or 5 weeks for him, I'm with you, man. 100%. We're good to go. Let's rock and roll. I promised this guy that I'll do this over here. So just give me 4 or 5 weeks. No biggie. They're like, yep, not a problem. So meanwhile, this other guy goes and has another caddy for the first 4, for those kind of 4 or 5 weeks. And kind of at that end of 4 or 5 weeks, he's like, hey, we're kind of rocking and rolling right now. This guy's doing a good job. I just kind of want to ride this out and see how it goes. Just kind of see what happens. And that was 3 years ago. And that caddy is still on this player's bag. And that player is Will Zalatoris. And so, it's like one of those things where you don't know what you don't know. And he's like, yeah, so every time I see that guy, man, I'm like, you owe me like $1 million.
No guarantees.
No guarantees. You don't know. And either way, and it's not to say that it's that tenuous balance of loyalty and, but also, these guys are out there. It's a business. If they feel like they need to make a change, whether it's with a sand wedge, a ball, a sponsor, types of clubs or whatever, or a caddy or a coach. I think if you decide to do that, you get it. You just kind of know that, everything is kind of week to week at best, and that's just kind of what it is.
But you made it through. So you think this leads to more caddy gigs for you?
I wouldn't hate it if it did. I loved it. I loved the experience. I thought it was fun. I was tired as hell because, I probably should have taken up running or something a couple weeks before, or tried to do a little bit more physical activity because, like I said, it's about a 7 or 8 mile walk. And then you got, your 30-pound bag or whatever, and then, this, that. But the experience being inside the ropes, it's an awesome opportunity. It's an awesome way to watch professional sports, is getting to be inside the ropes with, once you're at that level, Korn Ferry, whatever, the difference between guys on Korn Ferry, guys on PGA Tour, nothing. From a skill standpoint, from an ability standpoint, you could make an argument that the Korn Ferry setups in some ways are harder. Like, you have to go out and make a lot of birdies. So it kind of suits a different type of game or different type of player, maybe a little bit. But, I love the experience. I thought it was super fun. It was super competitive. It was cool to be kind of in that environment, watching guys do something that I'll never be able to do. So, hopefully, I think it'd be really fun to, there's always guys need a fill-in caddy for a week here and there or something like that. Boom, you fly out for one event and you do that. Their regular caddy is sick, or family has something, or whatever. There's always reasons.
Has outstanding
warrants in the state of Colorado and isn't allowed inside state lines. Those kind of things. So I hope so. I mean, it was really fun. And yeah, I would absolutely do it again. Hopefully it's something I get an opportunity to do again, because I would certainly welcome it. No doubt.
I'm back. I do have one more.
Where'd you go, Harry? Where'd you go?
I went for an ice cream.
Was immigration calling again, or
yes,
what?
again? I just had to give them my ID again. The question I have: did the caddies or players divulge any information on who's an asshole player on the PGA Tour, or someone that is super nice? Did anyone get thrown under the bus?
Not much that I heard about. But again, a lot of these guys that are on tour week after week, like I could tell a lot of the caddies, they ate lunch together, they knew each other, whatever. I wasn't really in any of those cliques. I didn't know any of them. And they certainly didn't know me. And so I didn't really get a sit at the lunch table with any of those guys. One guy I did run into that we chatted a bunch with Zach Fisher, who plays sub 70. He's their sub 70 guy, really good player. Played with him the last day, and he was hilarious. He was super funny. He didn't throw anybody under the bus or anything like that. But, I would say this, that if you go and you watch a tournament round, and I think it's pretty rare that you get a huge flip-flop. It's kind of like, if that guy's an ass to, the volunteers, they're kind of an ass just in general, or if they're going out of their way and being super nice and polite and whatever. It's hard to do that all the time at every event and all those things if that really kind of isn't your nature. So unfortunately, I didn't get too much dirt on players or anything like that, but maybe something for me to aspire to.
So when you obviously caddied for the guy, was he like wowed by the US Open atmosphere? Was it a too big a stage for him? Was he comfortable?
He said it was a little weird at first, like with all the cameras and stuff. I think that would be weird for anybody. Like all of a sudden you're playing well, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, holy shit, I'm leading the US Open. I think anybody that's competitive or human at all would be like, oh man, what is going on? And so I think that was a huge learning experience for him. I think it makes it, like anything else, probably easier in some regards to, you go from that, right? Like think about this, like you go from that, the US Open, at Brookline, a lot of energy and things around it. And then the next event you play in is at TPC Colorado, which is a great course. It's not Brookline, but it's a great course. And yeah, there are fans there. There are hundreds of fans. There are thousands of people on prop. There are tens and tens of fans watching us. So
it's got to live stuff.
Yeah,
out, right?
Absolutely. So a difference, right? I mean, in that way. And so I think there's no way that type of an experience wouldn't have an impact on you when you stop and kind of reflect on it and be like, man, holy shit, that was awesome, to go through that and be a part of that and see how the course was playing and how tough it was. And yeah, and all those kind of things just changes your perspective. But, I would think if anything that will help him, give him a lot of confidence for PGA Tour for sure, because you're not going to play, I mean, in a harder event, if you will, from a course setup standpoint than, a U.S. Open. Your weekly PGA Tour event isn't going to be set up like that. So,
all right, last question. Did he know what Mygolfspy was?
Absolutely.
Did it?
A lot of the a ton of the players. Yeah, it was hilarious. Like on the first tee, or like one day, I can't remember. I think we were playing our practice. He's like, hey, this is the Mygolfspy guy, and there's like, that is you guys. I was like, well, and they knew all of us. They knew you guys. Oh yeah, I was reading your testing about the balls and this and that and blah blah blah. And they're like, how's Tony's dog and blah. Like they're asking questions about like, oh, it's he's good, I think. But obviously it would make sense, right? These guys, a lot of them are a little bit more hardcore gearheads. They're more into that. The guys on the tour vans, I popped in there and said hello to a lot of them that, a lot of them, know us by name and those kind of things. But, a lot of the players were very well aware of what we do in kind of that role in the industry. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was good. So if you guys have questions, post them below. I would love to answer other questions you guys might have. What it was like to be inside the ropes for a day or for a week and have an experience and kind of do that stuff. But before we go, Tony, do you have a chipper in your bag?
I do not.
Why not?
But I may have to add.
Why would you have to add a chipper? First of all, do people know what is a chipper, Tony? Like, I mean, it is what it's.
It's right in the name, right? It's a club specifically designed for chipping. More specifically, designed for people who struggle chipping with conventional clubs, I would think. So, by the time this drops, it'll have been on the market for 3 or 4 days. But Ping has just released the chipper. That's CHIP capital R. So is it chipper or chipper?
Chipper. If the R's chipper.
Chipper. Yeah, I mean, maybe scream it, but it's not chipper with an exclamation point. So
or with too many vowels.
Just a capital, but yeah, it's I guess it's interesting. You've seen this before.
Wasn't there a chippo?
Ping has done it before. Cleveland had the Niblick. And the specifics are, so it's basically putter length, so 35 inches with 38.5 degrees loft, I want to say, or maybe 39.5.
So call it between an 8 and a 9. Yeah, it's like a 9 iron.
It's putter length, 9 iron loft, and then a 70-degree lie angle, which is also very much in line with a putter. And the idea is if you struggle from inside 40 yards, this could conceivably help.
You said 70-degree lie angle? All right, so when you test one of these, Tony, are you going to take full swings with it?
So we're gonna do some stuff at HQ and out on a golf course. We're thinking, and one of the things is, as a curiosity, is what happens when you try and rip a 9 iron at 70-degree line. You just all you
do
is you just hit it like Bryson and you're good to go. Like, it's incredibly upright.
Yeah, so
for people that don't get right, like a stock wedge would be about 64 degrees. Some people play them upright, but a stock 9 iron would be about 90 or 63 degrees. So for an average standard player, this would be like 7 degrees upright, right? Like
that's going to go for me. It's going left and then left again. It just keeps going.
It will. I would say maybe cure your chipping yips and also take the slice out of.
I mean, Harry, you could hit it like a boomerang. Probably you could probably hit it back.
Yeah. Honestly, here's the question: is there's only been one club that I was considering put in the bag that was unconventional, and that was the T-list driver.
And also your putter.
Yeah.
I mean, your lab putter is not exactly mainstream unless it's the...
No, but it does... Yeah, I get it. All right, so 2, potentially. But the T-list driver, I was tempted to take out the 3-wood and put that in there because I hit it so well out of any lie. If
it's a problem.
If I had a chipper, what club would I take out the bag? That's the tough part.
Yeah, so we kind of kicked this around, and my initial thought was you take out the highest lofted wedge, but then as we were kind of talking about it, we came up with this idea of like, well, figure out how far it goes on a full swing, and then take that one out.
I would probably take out the longest iron, potentially. For me, I would take the longest iron, whether it's a 4-iron or 3-iron, probably the 4-iron, and then weaken the loft of my 2-iron so there's less of a gap between my 5 and 2. But then, again, there's a huge gap between them. There's like 20, 30 yards.
It's going to be fun. Yeah, stay tuned, people, right? Because this is going to be... and again, this is probably...
Hate on it, but it's not
but
it's
been out for a couple of days, and if I recall correctly, like Ping isn't just slapping a name on it. Like this has the hydropearl finish. Like it has, like this is a legitimate golf club. Like
so
it's not
exactly. This is the most fascinating thing. I'm reading the press release, and I'm like, all right, here's the stock specifications and the stock shaft and the stock grip on a chipper, and then you realize like, hey. This is like any other Ping club. If I want to go somewhere and get custom fitted for a Ping chipper, that is something I can do. You can go get custom fit and get absolutely dialed in on a chipper, CHIP capital R, like you can any other club, and certainly like you never have before with it.
I want to know. I want to know.
It's
does the stigma translate as hard as a Bluetooth speaker or a ball retriever? Because ball retrievers...
This is definitely in the white belt iron cover kind of category.
But we found out that ball retrievers save lives, so it's multi-purpose.
And it might be your own.
The thing is, so we got the press release from Ping, and it was like, hey, if you have anybody at the Open this week, stop by our van and see it and check it out for yourself. And I'm like, is this, just they have it out because they have it out and it's new? I'm like, or is there a chance that with open conditions somebody's going to put a chipper and play it?
I want to see it.
I don't know. I don't know that that's going to happen. I doubt that that's going to happen. But my God, if you're looking to give a chipper instant credibility in a way it's never had before, I mean,
it's kind of like
somebody putting it in play.
It's kind of like the pros on tour when the flag stick in and out came out, right? And they were like, I just can't take myself as a serious golfer by putting the flag in and putting the flag in. That's probably got the same stigma, if not more, of a chipper. So,
and again, right? You don't. There's no model local rule in place that says, hey, if you do have a chipper, you're allowed to carry 15 clubs. So you have to take something out, and certainly at a major championship level, I can't imagine anybody's like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna drop my high lofted wedge. I don't really need that.
You might not need a 3-wood or potentially a 2-iron, because depending on out there, if it's rolling pretty firm, like links conditions pretty much do, and open conditions, you could probably get your 4-iron rolling up to about where your 2-iron would anyway. So.
Well, I mean, you might be able to are you going to keep that chipper on?
Hell yeah.
Sure. So maybe, who knows? Who knows?
Stay tuned. Stay tuned for.
That's why I'm going to be watching the Open and just be like every Ping hat. I'm going to be like,
you got a chipper in there?
Show me the bags. This guy gonna break out a chipper? CHIPR, capital R.
We'll see. So yes, as always, post your comments below. Find us and follow us on the social medias. Harry.
Go get fit for a
chipper at Golfspy T, at Golfspy C, Harry Nodwell, Old English. Find us, follow us. Let us know what you think. Until next time, we out.